Welcome back, panelists here. NBC News senior Washington correspondent Hallie Jackson. She's also host and anchor of Hallie Jackson Now and NBC News Now. Former Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson. Stephen Hayes, the editor of The Dispatch, and Leigh Ann Caldwell, co-author of the Washington Post's Early 202 and anchor of Washington Post Live. Hallie Jackson, I want to focus on Ron DeSantis because it, I think, does get us into all of the current hand-wringing inside the GOP, whether it's on abortion, whether it's about Donald Trump and everything. But look at these headlines. It's astonishing to me for a candidate that is not in the race yet. We're talking about trying to stop Florida Republicans from endorsing Trump. Top Republican donor sours on him over social issues. Down in the polls, Wall Street Journal says he looks to rebound. He's not announced yet. This has just been an incredibly shrinking candidacy.
It will not surprise you that there are people close to Ron DeSantis who are downplaying the headlines that you just showed here, Chuck, because they feel like it is still early days yet. Although I do think that I wouldn't be surprised. He has alluded to, I think, to people that he's talked to, he doesn't want to announce anything until after the state legislative session ends. I think it'll be... My sense is it's going to be fairly soon after that and not a long time after that because they want to get in this race and start to push back. I think you're already seeing some of that coming out with these ads now going up against Donald Trump from the super PAC. You're starting to see some of it in the way that they are drawing some of these policy distinctions on issues like abortion because on this, I think they have a sense that what's he going to do? He's not going to not sign. He's not going to veto a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. And they think that while this is maybe an issue, I think in the primary, there is no other good option here. So, of course, he's going to do it, and they're going to talk about it.
Steve Hayes, there is a Republican donor community that is desperate for Goldilocks. They're looking for that person that can somehow bring the Trump wing and the establishment wing behind. And DeSantis was supposed to be Goldilocks. Is the porch too hot?
It's a difficult balance to strike, I think. Look, there is certainly a thirst, I think, among Republican elected officials, some Republican rank-and-file voters, to move beyond Donald Trump. We saw this in remarks over the weekend from Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia. You've seen this from top Republican donors. There's polling that suggests this is the case with Republicans more broadly. What's curious about what Ron DeSantis is doing, Donald Trump has picked a fight with evangelicals, white evangelical voters who were the core of his base, blaming them for abortion-related problems after the 2022 midterms. And there's an obvious place for Ron DeSantis to drive a wedge between Trump and his base.
So you think this
and he's choosing not to do it.
Oh, I see. You think he was setting it up on policy but then not doing it?
As you pointed out, he's not talking about it. He went to Liberty University. He didn't tout it. He didn't mention it. This seems like an obvious place for Ron DeSantis to split Trump from some of the evangelical voters who are frustrated with his comments after the 2022 midterms.
Leigh Ann, watching DeSantis strikes me, in baseball there's an old term called rabbit ears. Somebody's at bat and they hear all of the critiques behind them. And it seems like he hears every criticism and responds to it. Oh, you're not doing this enough. You're not doing this enough. Oh, I don't like your Ukraine response. And he's almost responding to it all. Oh, wait, too many abortions are happening in Florida right now. Oh, let me deal with that.
Yeah. Well, there's some concern among some Republicans that he's not yet ready for prime time. That's one of the messages that Nikki Haley is pushing, and that's what you hear from Republican sources as well. He's not tested. He's been in a bubble in Florida, not talking to the press, not engaging, and he is very popular there. But what happens when he meets a national media? What happens when he meets Donald Trump, who is masterful at taking down his candidates or his opponents?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting, Jay Johnson. One note of caution I throw at some people as we're writing off down, I think Ron DeSantis is too quick, is about this time Barack Obama in 2007, supporters are going, hey, he hasn't caught Hillary Clinton yet. What's wrong? He doesn't have what it takes. Donors were starting to wring their hand. Then the debates happened, the campaign happened, and things took place. Do you think there's a little bit of overreaction here?
Chuck, as you know, in politics, a month is a year, a week is a month. I agree with Steve. I think DeSantis is making a very concerted effort to be the most aggressively conservative person in this field and is trying to go after Trump's base. I'm puzzled that he did not mention the 6-week bill at Liberty University.
Especially at Liberty.
Right. I've spoken at Liberty
Especially
University.
the way he did it. Like he quickly flew from Ohio to Florida, signed the bill so he could get there the next day. You're like, oh, that must be what you're up to.
I've spoken there, and the pro-life stance is the one big unifying thing among the student body and the faculty at Liberty University.
But Hallie, let me show you something. Yeah. Tim Scott did his sort of semi-rollout.
Yeah.
Let me show you two versions of Tim Scott and the abortion issue. Watch.
If that 20-week ban reached your desk, would you sign it?
20-week ban, definitely.
I'm not going to talk about 6 or 5 or 7 or 10. I'm just saying that whatever the most conservative legislation is that can come through Congress
is what you would sign.
Yes.
It underscores this. They don't know what to say.
What may be interesting to you is that there are people close to Tim Scott who are happy with the headline coming out of our colleague Ali Vitale's interview, because they feel like the line is he's going to sign whatever the most conservative policy is going to come through Congress.
The day before?
And they think that whatever is going to come through Congress will have some conservative consensus. So that is going to be, I think, the line that you'll see from him moving forward. What's interesting is I heard from on the other side of the aisle, because obviously the big issue and why we're talking about this is what does this mean for a general election? When you look at where the American population is, where American voters are writ large. And one Democrat phrased it to me this way: Tim Scott's present essentially could be Ron DeSantis' future, right? The idea that there is some difficulty in coming and answering some of that abortion question. I will say, doesn't some of this, though, on DeSantis give you 2015 vibes? All of these other candidates sniping at each other. Not Scott Walker, but the idea Donald Trump is still the leader of the pack. And there has been a hesitancy so far to go after him in an aggressive and fulsome way, I think, because people are seeing where his numbers are post-indictment with the Republican primary base.
Steve, last week, though, Brendan Buck said something I thought was right. He's like, look, no one's in charge of the party.
Right.
And that's the problem. There is no consensus abortion position. And without it, I think the Democrats can define the Republicans.
Yeah, you can make an argument that there are many places on many policies where Republicans don't have a consensus position because it's just whatever Donald Trump has wanted for the last 6 years. Look, I think part of this is also how early it is in the process. You have these candidates who are sort of quasi-candidates, right? They've come out, they said they want to be president. They're not really willing to take Donald Trump on because it's early, and they're not articulating their own policy positions. So they're being asked to react and respond to everything else.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.